This Sagittarius full moon is inviting us to be objective about reality while still leaving room for curiosity, dreaming, and expansion to keep us connected to our spirits during times of immense uncertainty. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Hummingbird Arcana Podcast. I am Jo Hummingbird. I'm an Evolutionary Astrologer, Usui Reiki Master, and a Tarot and Oracle Specialist. I'm here to help awaken you to your Cosmic Divinity, and today I have an episode for you all about the upcoming Sagittarius Full Moon that we have happening this Sunday on May 31st at 3:44 a.m. Central Standard Time. This is quite the loaded full moon. This is not just a loaded full moon for me and because of how it activates my chart, but we have lots of aspects, we have lots of conversations, we have quite a few themes to divulge, and this one's going to be a long one. I'm going to be honest. This is probably going to be closer to an hour in length, so if you are not here for that, I'm so sorry. Exit out now. But forgive me for not being able to upload last week. I was recovering after international travel. I got sick, and if you can hear it in my voice, I still have a little bit of it going on. I still feel a little under the weather, but I need to get this episode out, and I need to get you peeps your information for this full moon, of course. So I am here. I am happy. I'm serving. I'm alive. I'm going. So if you're interested in hearing about this Sagittarius full moon and all of what it entails for us, then keep on listening to this episode of Hummingbird Arcana. So like I mentioned in the intro, this Sagittarius full moon is going to be happening on Sunday, May 31st at 3:44 a.m. Central Standard Time. Do your own time conversions for your time zones where you live, but that is where it is happening and when it is happening in my time zone. So with that being said, this is also our blue moon of 2026. You know that saying where it happens once in a blue moon? That's where this comes from. The blue moon. This is the blue moon, Sagittarius full moon 2026. This is kind of, the Jupiter ruled moon. This is of course going to be the blue moon, the thing that we, wish upon. It's kind of fantasy like. It's like out there in the realm. It's like, oh my God, every once in a blue moon, this kind of thing happens. I wish it would happen, or, that kind of rarity and synchronicity that's so Jupiterian in nature. So it just makes sense that the Sagittarius full moon is the blue moon. So with that being said, the sun will be at 9 degrees and 55 minutes of Gemini, and the moon will be at 9 degrees, 55 minutes of Sagittarius. This is what happens every time we have a full moon. The sun and the moon oppose each other. When we have a new moon, they conjunct each other. We know this, but this is happening in the axis of the student and the teacher. Gemini and Sagittarius. This is the twins and the centaur. This is communication versus contemplation, and this is the axis of learning. It's the axis of stimulus. It's the axis of education, period. Not just like learning from, like a leisure standpoint or a psychological standpoint, or like what is the adjective here that I'm trying to search for? More on the realm of like, okay, learning as a facility or a facilitation or a process, but, education as like schooling, like higher education, textbooks, articles, newspapers, like, the actual thing that we learn from rather than just the process itself. But with Sagittarius having the moon there, this is a very, very adventurous and ambitious place for the moon to be, and the sun in Gemini is a very, very curious place for it to be. So this is a pretty interesting axis to be lighting up at this time where, we have a lot of political unrest. We have a lot of really unfortunate things happening in the world that we cannot fully control all the time unless, we have access to a larger amount of resources that are being hoarded by evil people. Like, there are a lot of crazy conversations that are happening right now that shouldn't have to happen in the first place, but they are because it's a state of reality, and we're not here to spiritually bypass that. We're not here to dismiss the density of the human experience right now. That is not the kind of tune that we're on over here. But when it comes to Gemini and Sagittarius and how they impact the world, they are kind of two of the most social signs. Gemini being ruled by Mercury, that's like your community, the communication, the routine that you have, the way that you talk to people. It's short form travel, like, your bus, your bike, your motorcycle, your car, your train. Those are very Gemini associated things, and those are all very communal things. Like obviously, sometimes being in your car, you're alone, you're not socializing with people, but you're on the road and you have to use, agreed upon senses of communication to communicate on the street, on the road, on the highway with the people around you to be able to drive. And then Sagittarius, on the other hand, is like the airplanes, like the boats, the, helicopters, like the things that are a little bit more grandiose and that are a little bit more lavish in nature or luxurious or seen that way and cost a lot more money, that aren't as sustainable, that are a little bit more, larger group of people oriented. A lot more people can hop on a commercial airplane or on a boat to get across water than if, a bunch of people just hopped on like a little jet ski or a bunch of jet skis, or if we took the time as a community to build a bridge across a big body of water. Like, you could just take a plane, you could take a boat. Like, that's kind of this axis between Gemini and Sagittarius. And with the way that travel has been impacted in the world right now, we are watching a lot of different countries revoke passport access or visa laws, or just even global entry for people with certain passports. And we're watching a lot of other governments be very restrictive on who they let into their countries and why. And a lot of that has to do with political propaganda. A lot of it has to do with, people trying to stay safe, but then some of it is just flat out corruption and fascism. But that's a different conversation, a different day. With that being said, Gemini is going to be the one that is curious about how to improve the problem, whereas Sagittarius wants to argue about which is the right way to do things or what the right answer is. And so, also over in Gemini, we have Uranus and Mercury that are being lit up by the sun. And Uranus being within the first decan of Gemini, which is Mercury ruled, and then Mercury being over in the last decan of Gemini, which is Uranus ruled. There's like an itty-bitty mutual reciprocity that happens there that's being fully lit up by the sun, because the sun will be in the first decan of Gemini with Uranus, lighting up both Mercury's decan and Uranus as a planet. Again, over where Mercury is in Uranus's decan, in the sign that's ruled by Mercury altogether. So Mercury's in domicile, there's a little mutual reciprocity, it's being lit up by the sun. It's pretty powerful, just right in and of itself. Aside from everything else we have going on with this full moon that we have yet to talk about, this is a pretty powerful little combination we have going on. Even though you wouldn't think of it as being like powerful and domineering in the way that Mars or Pluto or Saturn could be, this is a little bit more strategic. It's a little bit more calculated. It's a little bit more technological. It's a little bit more verbal and psychological even. This is very... the world and its ability to communicate with itself and each other and everything in between is challenged. It's being looked at. It's being illuminated. And the sun in Gemini wants to get curious because, even more so with Mercury being here in the sign of Gemini, which is its sign of domicile, this is, let me be the bookworm Gemini. Let me go do all the research and find all the articles and watch all the YouTube videos and binge all the documentaries on any streaming platform that I can find, and let me get super, super into this because I want to know. And then the moon in Sagittarius is over there just, philosophizing the whole thing, trying to make sense of it, trying to spiritually find the truth of the matter rather than just, learning all the objective facts, which Gemini wants to do. Gemini is fact and Sagittarius is belief. So Gemini wants to learn all of what other people's perspectives are and fill in the blank with what is objectively a trend, versus Sagittarius wants to, roam about it a little bit more freely and feel out what is true for itself before coming to its own conclusion about what other people are projecting onto it. So there's this balance that has to happen. Uranus's unexpected changes over in Gemini, Mercury's communication and, the internet. There's no retrograde happening yet, but with Mercury and Uranus both in Gemini, it sure as shit fucking feels like it. So don't be surprised if your technology is acting weird, if, that whole weird Instagram thing of like follower counts going up and down, but nobody having unfollowed you and nobody new having followed you either. So that's a very like Mercury, Gemini Uranus type conversation that's very, very that, or a very Mercury retrograde type conversation, which we don't even have happening. With that being said, Uranus and Mercury and Gemini and the Sun lighting that up, this is also highlighting a lot of the issues that AI is presenting to us, which we've already known about, the horrible things it's doing to water supply, the fact that all the money from it is being funneled into basically just the wallets of big tech bros, and the fact that they're filling fascist wallets and lining them because they're selling out their AI fucking data centers and the data they collect to surveillance companies that are owned by the government or funded by the government or have deals with the government. So it's very, we're lighting things up like that. Gemini is going to get curious and is going to want to leave no stone unturned, and Sagittarius wants the truth out of it with the moon. So it's like, okay, well, something feels off, Sag, moon, I'm going to go searching for it, Gemini, Sun, Uranus, and Mercury, and I'm not going to leave a stone unturned, and I don't give a fuck what I find, even if it makes me uncomfortable. I'm going to fucking find it. And with that being said, this is also, choosing curiosity over the challenge. It's, instead of me being overstimulated, mentally overwhelmed, Gemini, Uranus, Mercury, the Sun, and, feeling super emotionally big about it with the Jupiter-ruled Sagittarius moon over there, instead of me letting the psychological or even just mental density of the experience outweigh my ability to do something about it. And that can be very ableist if you don't know yourself and if you don't know where your limitations lie, where your disability limits certain parts of your human experience, or where neurotypical people are projecting their own ableist life onto somebody who is disabled, or somebody able-bodied projecting onto disabled people. Like, that conversation is so sensitive and so tricky, so please take this with a grain of salt. I am not talking about forcing ableism onto people who are disabled. That is not what we're doing here. This is saying, like, oh, okay, is this going to be something for the people who have the ability to do something about that? Fill in that blank with that disclaimer there. Take that with that context. For the people who are able to do something about this, are you going to sit there and let the discomfort of every situation make you chicken out of even being involved? Or is it going to challenge you enough mentally to be able to feel, think, act, behave differently? Is it going to force you to get a little bit more curious? Is it going to ask you to ask the right questions rather than ignore them because it is a little confusing or overwhelming? Like, that whole kind of just doing something, quote unquote, notion, that's what this kind of context is. It's not necessarily about, physically, able people versus disabled people. There's no dichotomy here with that. There's no sort of pitting people against each other. That is not what I am trying to say here, so please do not take it that way. With this, again, it is just about, Gemini wanting to go, learn, turn the next page, get to all of the nitty-gritty, the details, and Sagittarius kind of just wanting the cliff notes and to figure it out for themselves based off of real life. And a lot of people leaning more into that Sag energy. But right now, with this full moon, as much as it is a Sagittarius full moon, there's a lot more going on across the sky that is lighting up this axis that we need to pay attention to. We don't need to be leaning into that Sag energy right now. We need to be leaning into the Gemini to help balance it all out. We need to be understanding, okay, there's a lot more happening over in Gemini. Let's pay attention to that because it's calling us, it's overstimulating us, it's overwhelming us. So we need to, as much as we want to lean into the Sagittarius and just kind of, brush it off, be kind of aloof about it, or allow for the cookie to crumble and, the cards to fall where they may. Let's not be so frivolous here. Gemini wants to get into the details. It wants to read the fine print. It wants to make sure that it crosses its T's and dots the I's. So with that being said, then we also, in the same time that we have this full moon, away from the axis of Gemini and Sagittarius, finally, talking about some other aspects here, we have Mars having recently ingressed into Taurus. This is where the divine masculine feels a little bit more vulnerable because Taurus is a sign where Mars is in detriment because it's ruled by Venus. And anytime you have a planet or a house in a sign or a house that is of its opposite rulership, then it is by default in detriment. So, opposite of Taurus is Scorpio. Scorpio is ruled by Mars traditionally. So when you put Mars into Taurus, what happens to Mars? It goes into detriment because it's opposite of its rulership. So same thing with Libra. You put Mars into Libra, opposite of Libra is Aries, the ruler of Mars. Mars in Libra is therefore detriment. But with Mars in Taurus, this is kind of where the masculine slows down a little bit. This is for the detriment of Venusian placement for Mars. Instead of Libra, an air sign, this is Taurus, the earth sign, and considered very stubborn, considered very slow moving, very patient, very will, climb the hill, do what it needs to do slowly over time and in a comfortable way so it can long term get to the goal that it's setting. So Mars, masculine energy, war, conflict, aggression, protection, determination, ambition, and in some cases boundaries. But that energy, regardless of what context it is, it's going to be moving slower. It's going to be taking its time. It's it's in a state of detriment where it's not going to be performing at peak capacity where it would in Aries or Scorpio or in Capricorn where Mars is exalted. It wouldn't be moving that fast. It just quite literally can't because it's in the slowest of the Venusian signs. Venus is, of course, the Mars and Venus star-crossed lover trope, whatever. That's not really a part of astrology. That's kind of a part of pop culture. I don't want you to think that, well, now that Mars is in Venus sign, that means that love and romance is going to be turned up. And, Mars is a sexual planet and Taurus is a very romantic, sensual planet. So maybe people are going to be able to hook up more. Maybe that would work for you if, you have Mars in Taurus or you have, some sort of Venusian Mars placement in your houses, like your second house, seventh house. Maybe, but that's not the point here. It's not saying, okay, Mars and Taurus, everybody horny on Maine. That's not what we're doing. This is Mars and Taurus. How is the divine masculine having to surrender to the earth-based wisdom of the divine feminine? How is the slow and natural cycle of the earth forcing the divine masculine to have to surrender and slow down and give into that innate wisdom that nature has? There is a rhythm, there is a cycle, there is a process, there is an unfolding, there is life happening. And are you forcing it to happen or are you letting it happen? Mars in Taurus wants to slow down a little bit, wants to get its footing, wants to, sit on a chair for a minute to stop the legs from hurting, so that way when it gets back up and continues the journey, it's not gonna hurt as fucking bad. And when I sit down, there are some flowers around me that I get to then be present with and appreciate. And that then grounds me a little bit more, and I get to then have more capacity to appreciate the nature around me. And maybe I drink some water while I'm here. I take a quick little nap, and then I get back up and I continue on my merry way. That's Mars and Taurus. But it's also the divine masculine feels more vulnerable because being of service is a little bit more monotonous and tiresome because of how slowly it's moving here. And the creative pursuits feel easier to accomplish than the mundane chores or the things that are considered more typically, from a societal standpoint, patriarchally masculine. The productivity culture is going to slow down, and that's going to feel, based off of society's programming, more intrinsically shameful, whether or not that's something you believe about productivity for yourself or not. Innately, I don't think being productive is inherently reflective of one's worth or value, but it is reflective of one's character. And so try not to let the whole, energy of Mars and Taurus reflect on your character or your value or your worth at all, because it's not about you. It's about the planets. It's about the cycles. It's about nature. It's about the cosmos. It's about the goddess just doing her fucking thing and us letting it happen and learning from the wisdom of it. That's exactly what the Mars and Taurus thing is. It's, okay, instead of me trying to figure this all out and trying to have control over it, Mars and Aries grip that we've been trying, so desperately to let go of for a little bit now, Mars and Taurus wants us to let the fists soften and set the thing down and take a step back and breathe before we pick it back up. And then we have also, speaking of Taurus, the ruler of Taurus Venus. Venus will have ingressed into Cancer. It is currently there. Love it. We love the whole finding home in ourselves again feeling. But then Jupiter has already been in Cancer for quite some time. So both of the most important benefics of astrology are in Cancer. The moon is the ruler of Cancer. It's over in Sagittarius. Jupiter rules Sagittarius. Jupiter is in Cancer right now where it's exalted. That's a really powerful mutual reciprocity between this full moon and what's going on over in Cancer. And with that being said, Venus and Jupiter in Cancer, like the relationship to your home life, your ability to feel comfort, your cleanliness, your ability to take care of yourself, they're both being challenged and expanded by Jupiter, because Jupiter in Cancer isn't always like, oh my God, abundance, blessings, and fortune, it's so good all the time. No, not always. So there's a lot of philosophy in the ability to take care of yourself and what it means about how you feel on the inside, how your spirit is doing, how your mental health is. Were you traumatized? Like, there's a lot of Jupiter and Cancer themes that go just beyond having big feelings and getting things that you want in life because the goddess loves you, apparently, and plays favorites. That's not what Jupiter and Cancer does. But with Venus and Jupiter together in Cancer, again, this is like it's like a warm hug from the goddess being like, it's going to be okay, but this is going to fucking suck. Like, everything else that's going on right now is going to fucking suck, but I still love you and I'm going to be here for you. So this also means that, with that supportive energy coming in from the Divine Mother, the Divine Feminine, the Divine Period, like Venus, Cancer, Jupiter, that's that triad that I just talked about kind of right there. This really does bring an easier ability for you to physically connect psychosomatically to your spirit, and thusly your intuition, and thusly the spirit realm. Jupiter is kind of, traditionally beyond the discovery of Neptune, or before the discovery of Neptune is what was beyond the veil. It's the divine aspect of things. It's like the heavens. So, Venus being a goddess and Cancer being the Divine Mother, the heavens, the goddess, the Divine Mother, that whole thing. This is a really good time to get in touch with the creatrix, the creatrix force of the cosmos, and really feel that innate connection that you have to her within every part of your being, because you are an extension of that. She created everything. She birthed it all from the cosmic void of nothingness into existence. We are just literally an extension of the same material she used to do that, but billions and billions and trillions and quadrillions of years fucking later. So you're just a fucking pile of stardust and rock held together by a different set of frequency that happens to be aware of itself, that is alive on another rock, hurling through space around a solar system, somehow perfectly alive, even though there is horrible shit still happening. That's this whole, like, Jupiter, Venus, Cancer, mutual reciprocity with Jupiter over in the moon in Sagittarius type thing. This is like, and Gemini and Sagittarius is kind of the axis of philosophy as well, in thinking, and the school of thought that you subscribe to even. And so this is very much so the philosophy and the truth of the Divine Mother and the universe and the cosmos kind of making its way into your body and into your mind, so that way your spirit doesn't have to fight your human so much just to fucking get through to you. This isn't like a Venus and Jupiter, oh my God, I can read cards and I'm getting so many fucking readings from clients type thing. If you run that kind of business similar to what I do, or if you're in the same field as me, whatever. That's not what this looks like. This is, my body is responding differently to my spirit, and I'm picking up on things differently. I think and feel differently about my connection to my spirit. I think and feel differently about my connection to the universe. And the way that it's unfolding for me is changing in the physical realm too. It's not just in my mind or in my heart or in my spirit or in my practice. It's in real life. So with that being said, we have two really, really important trines that I also want to talk about that are happening during this full moon. We have the Sun and Uranus over in Gemini that will be trining Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. I'm not thrilled about this trine in particular. Trines are never really a challenge. They're always very supportive. But with the state of Pluto being in fall position in Aquarius, and then also having stationed retrograde, this is like, oh my God. And Uranus, the planet that rules Aquarius, being over in Gemini, being lit up by the sun, and the sun is in detriment in Aquarius, but it's trining that supportive energy over in Gemini instead, which would create a sextile to Leo, the ruler of the sun. So it's more supported to be in Gemini than it is in Aquarius, thank goddess. But nonetheless, it's lighting up Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius. So the sun plus Uranus together is not a good time because they're opposites. Uranus rules Aquarius, Leo rules the sun, and those two signs are opposites. They're not friends. I mean, they can be. You see a lot of a Leo and Aquarius, like pairs of friends sometimes, but the rest of their chart matters too. Anyways, Leo energy with the sun, lighting up Uranus in Gemini. They're over there trining Pluto in Aquarius, which Pluto is fucking up Aquarius right now. And so Uranus, as the ruler, is like, oh my God. And then the sun is lighting that up, being like, oh my God. So this is the wild card of this full moon. This I will attribute to whatever happens right around this full moon politically, whatever happens right around AI, what happens around like technology failing, or something in the ability to communicate or broadcast information failing, or something with an internet grid or a power grid, or like whatever in that realm happens after this full moon or right around this full moon, this aspect is to blame. I guarantee it. I guarantee it's not just Uranus trining Pluto, but the sun lighting that shit up and sparking a fire that was already kind of with some more members and starting to smoke a little bit. So I don't ever encourage fear mongering ever, but this aspect is just not my favorite. I'm just going to be very honest and say that flat out. This is kind of like, it's like if you got a paper cut and you deliberately poured lemon juice on it, and then you put peroxide on right after because you were like, okay, well now I have to clean this, and then it stings even more. And then you're like sitting there like, what the fuck? Why did I just do that? It's like something good could happen from good intent, or something bad could happen from having good intentions. And that consequence of still having a good intention could also still be equally as destructive as if you were to have had a bad one. Does that make sense? I hope that does when I put it that way, because that's what this aspect is giving. It's like, Uranus being innovation and Pluto in fall, like, death, rebirth, transformation into humanitarianism of Aquarius. The sun trying to light it up and like oppose that energy to balance out the axis, trying to give a little bit more Leo energy to all the Aquariusness with Gemini, the twins. It's like, don't worry, I'll balance you out. I got you, twin. And then it just kind of creates something worse. Like, like a cartoon moment of like trying to put out a fire and then you throw like something on it and it makes it worse. Like, that's what this is giving. And I don't like this aspect. I'm just going to be flat out. And that's what I have to say on it. But then we move into the other important trine that is also happening at the same time. This moon in Sagittarius will be trining Saturn in Aries, which, you guessed it, Saturn's also in fall in Aries. So both of our trines are both two generational planets that are both in fall in their sign right now. So, yeah, when I get you, I'm going to fucking get you. like I can't stand these two aspects in the sky right now. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. But it's okay. We're not going to let that destroy our moods. We're not going to let that destroy our ability to move forward, because it is part of this full moon, and this too shall pass. But moon in Sagittarius, trining Saturn in Aries, this introduces, like, despite the craziness of what it sounds like and, my hyperbole of an overreaction just now, this does introduce support with our ability to see and still, like, practically pursue a better future while still oppositely facing the adversity head on. Of, it's like you're still wishfully trying to daydream things into existence and have hope and faith, while also still being dealt some of the shittiest hand, and somehow along the way that actually rewarding you, and it not just being something that you're like martyring yourself, even though it looks and actively feels like it. Or, you're not just, sacrificing yourself needlessly or endlessly and it's not getting you anywhere. This trine feels like, you know what? Sprinkle a little bit of sugar into that. Throw the dog a bone. Like, this kind of feels like there's a little bit more hope despite the odds, and it's illuminating our ability to have faith in what we're fighting for, even when it feels like there's nothing left to fight for. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that gives it a little bit more like, okay, there's actually something good going on from the trines, because they're supposed to be supportive, but you just talked a lot of shit about them. I know. I know. As an astrologer, you would think that trines would always be supported, but not necessarily. Depends on what's going on, the context, the conditions, the signs, the house, everything matters. So, with that being said, the last aspect that I have to share with you before we jump into themes and what you can do to work with this full moon. This is very important. This is also why I'm like, okay, this full moon has a lot going on. Buckle up, because we have the sun, Uranus, and moon all exactly squaring the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo. So the Sun and Uranus together in that first decan of Gemini, they are squaring both nodes because the nodes exist on both sides of the sky. One's over here and one's over there. And that's happening in Pisces and Virgo, two mutable signs. And then this Sun and Moon, and then obviously Uranus, those are happening in the other two mutable signs. So 4 of 4 mutable signs are filled out in this square, making a perfect square all the way around the sky between the North and South Node in Pisces, and then the Sun and Uranus in Gemini, and the Moon in Sagittarius. That sounds like a lot because it fucking is. So this is basically creating like the feeling of like evolution and forward. Feels divinely guided and supported, but it is so confusing and so all over the place, because it's one thing to have a square between a planet or in a point in space between one sign and another. It's another thing to have them happen in mutable signs. And then it's a whole other beast entirely to have a perfect square between all 4 mutable signs being activated by 2 points in space and by 2 luminaries in a planet. So this is a lot. This is kind of like saying like, okay, which way is up? Is up a subjective thing? Is everything subjective? Fuck, I am so tired. I'm just going to go take a nap and handle this shit tomorrow. Like, it's that kind of mood. It's like, I'm so exhausted of always trying to figure out the answers and get it right. I'm just going to fucking try again tomorrow. I'm gonna go, make dinner. I'm gonna go have a glass of wine. I'm gonna go smoke a joint. I'm gonna do whatever, and then I'll come back to the drawing board tomorrow when I feel better about it, instead of when I'm all flustered like this and confused. But funnily enough, the confusion is gonna keep going until this moon is over, and once the sun kind of leaves that decan of Gemini, let alone when it leaves Gemini altogether and we go into Cancer season, that will be a little bit better for this. But this is kind of just like the aspect of like, okay, well, everything I do to move forward doesn't feel like it fully gets me anywhere, but I know that I'm supported. I know that I can feel the divine behind me. I'm getting the synchronicities showing up. I'm, even if you're not doing all the work, quote unquote, like from like a meditation or practice or witchcraft or spell work or prayer or whatever standpoint you do it, or whatever you resonate with or practice, even if you're not like spiritually keeping up with your hygiene and routine, like if you're not doing that quote unquote regularly, this support is still here for you and pushing you forward. It just might kind of push you through that filter a little bit more because it's Sagittarius, it's Pisces, it's Gemini, and it's Virgo. It's like Gemini and Virgo are going to want to learn about it and then do it practically and integrate it into a good routine and focus on how it's helpful for the health in all directions. And then it's going to go into Sagittarius and it's like, well, the philosophy behind it and the ability for me to actually have the freedom within it instead of feeling rigid to it. And then Pisces is going to be like, well, if I even want to do that at all, but who am I? Like, what is everything? And then it starts back all over again. And I don't want you to feel like just because, you know, the mutable energy is so hard to pin down and hard to keep in one place that you can't get anything done right now. I don't want you to say like, oh, like just throw it to the fucking shit right now and, you know, put all your projects on the back burner. It's going to be really easy to do that because everything is so confusing and overwhelming. But when you actually step in and do it, it's also going to be, you know, with the mutable energy, they're the most adaptable. So they're going to be able to like switch tasks very easy. So you're going to find that, like, even if the thing you don't want to do is just, like, annoying as fuck or inconvenient as fuck, once you actually start doing it, you're going to find that the energy behind it is supporting you in doing it. Or if the thing that you're trying to do is intimidating and you don't want to do it, you'll find that once you start doing it, there's going to be supportive energy behind it. Whether or not that's spiritual for you or not intrinsically is up to you. But regardless, that energy is there to support you. Are you curious to see how this Sagittarius full moon will activate your natal chart and influence your energy? Then go ahead and check out my lunar luminosity reading, where I will help you look into how this full moon will be personally impacting you, along with some insight on how to integrate the energy for the day of, the day before, and the day after the full moon itself. This is the perfect reading to get if you want to align your life with the natural cycles of the moon and work with her astrological archetypes. So head to the link in the description box or in the show notes below to book a lunar luminosity reading of your very own. And now, back to Hummingbird Arcana. So let's talk about the themes that you saw in the title of this episode. We have Visions of the Dreamer and Truth versus Fact. Now, Visions of the Dreamer, this is kind of what we talked about with that whole, you know, North Node squaring the Sun, Uranus, and the Moon, and then we also have the mutual reciprocity between the Sagittarius Moon and Jupiter in Cancer. There's a lot of that kind of energy that plays into this because I feel like those are two of the really most important parts of this full moon. This is envisioning a better future and having faith in that future, and knowing that right now is the most challenging time to be able to do that with all the continual tensions that are happening across the globe, with whatever context that is, whether it's financial, economic, political, cultural, which is all interconnected. There's no way to, you know, fully, you know, differentiate them because they're all interconnected in some way and they all kind of point back to each other. And they're all related. They're all kind of equally causing each other. There's a lot of different nuances to all of it. It's a deeper conversation than we can have here right now. But with all of that in the mix and still choosing out of spite, out of rebellion, out of, you know, kind of the fuck you to the machine, to say, you know what, I'm still going to envision a better future for myself, and I'm going to have faith in that because it's exactly what this machine doesn't want me to fucking do. And so I'm going to do the opposite. My truth is that I want X, Y, and Z for myself. So I'm going to go and I'm going to get it. And I'm going to keep my eyes set on that vision. And if you don't fucking like it, then come and take it from me. Y'all are already trying so damn hard with so many other people, and you can't do it to everybody. So do it and try it. I fucking dare you. See what fucking happens. Like, not actually taunting, not in that way, but, you know, it's that attitude of like, you know what? I deserve to live a good life in spite of the horrible things happening around the world. And I will do my best to be a good person in spite of the things that are happening. I won't let that jade me. That is what this is trying to do. That's the whole Visions of the Dreamer. It's about dreaming a better future and that vision being your responsibility to hold on to and to be able to see through to the end. So this is also, you know, it's responsible for us to be able to hold on to the dream, because there wouldn't be a better world if people hadn't dreamed for that to be real. There wouldn't be, you know, the talk of, you know, our rights being stripped from us if those rights weren't so important and had been dreamt by somebody before who was suffering from the same things before that right was put into place for them to not have to anymore, just for it to be attacked right now in the world today. There had to have been something before us that could dream something good into existence if it had to have even been idealized for something to take it away from us. There's a reason that it was dreamt into existence to begin with. We can tune back into that. And it's our responsibility to respond to what is happening right now around us in that way. And so, with that being said, also, if we want it to become a dream, then we can't let go of it. If we want it to come to life, then we can't let go of it. Because if we do, then we will lose sight of what we're fighting for, and we won't have the ability to show up with as much integrity or accountability or the ability to respond, not just responsibility of, from a character standpoint or from an obligation standpoint, but rather from the ability itself to respond to what is happening. And then we have truth versus fact. Now, truth, quote unquote, with a capital T, it is in and of itself very subjective, meaning that it's not defined to one specific outcome that has been unanimously agreed upon by multiple people, or a textbook or a definition on Merriam-Webster's dictionary. It's not like there's a whole lot of room for proof. It's somebody's truth. Not that truth can't be proven, but it's truth is subjective. It's very nuanced. It's very all over the place. It's malleable. It's changeable. Whereas fact is not. And my truth can be very different than someone else's, and their truth can be different than yours, and so on and so forth. But facts are objective, meaning they don't leave room for non-credible truths that haven't been unanimously agreed upon as being true, real, or valid. So, facts, I guess you could say, are just truths that have been agreed upon, sure, but then that would also make the squares and rectangle situation similar here, where, all facts are truths, but not all truths are facts. So take that with a grain of salt. But the whole thing here is that Gemini is the fact and Sagittarius is the truth. And Sagittarius wants to go based off of its own experiences, its beliefs, its, accumulated life situations and thoughts and opinions and ideas, whereas Gemini wants to learn every perspective. Gemini wants to look at every book. Gemini wants to listen to every podcast, watch every YouTube video, watch every documentary or series about it online or a streaming service, wants to watch the news about it, wants to talk to its friends about it, to professionals about it. And right now, with this axis of truth versus fact being lit up by Sagittarius and Gemini, with the full moon and the sun and Uranus and Mercury, this full moon is asking us to really balance out what is truth versus fact for ourselves and what's that of the world, and really getting both subjective and objective, leaving the room for humanity with our truth, but being as objective about the reality of what is fact and reality itself right now. What is factual about reality versus what is subjective and or easily malleable and manipulatable. So how you can work with this and this full moon overall is to, really honor the nuances of the human experience, as cliche as it sounds, being able to honor the good, honor the bad, honor the ugly, honor the beautiful, and everything in between, really counting your blessings, because there are so many horrible things happening in the world. There is the nuance to, as much as there are wonderful, amazing things happening, there is horrible, demented, fucked up, evil shit happening. So wherever you're sitting on the spectrum, be grateful that you are not on the exact opposite end. If you're sitting here being able to listen to this podcast, with a phone and likely access to hot water or even just running clean water that we have left from what AI is doing. But besides the point, being able to have some sort of food to eat, some sort of water to drink and clean yourself with, clothes on your body, soap to wash your body with, like, then you're okay. And you're doing a lot better than you think you are. Promise. Promise. So this whole truth versus fact conversation, it's time to kind of weigh out, okay, what is a little bit more psychosis related, more truth-y for me because of the mass hysteria of what's going on versus, my own spirituality versus what I believe versus what life is testing my spirit with. And then what's over here with the fact side of things? What can I control? What do I have the ability to respond to? What do I have the capacity to respond to? Let me start there even before the other ones. And then how can I do that in ways that are practical that still serve my body and my health and the people around me? Very, Mercurial versus Jupiterian here. So with that being said, if this all just sounds like a lot, it is. It's because it is. And I don't want you to think that you have to figure out all of this on your own. I never do. That's why I'm here. I'm here to support you with all this information and to help you. And this full moon is very confusing in and of itself. Not that it isn't, able to make sense of it and the archetypes of it, but the conversations that are happening across the sky are very intricate. They're very complex, like you've heard in this episode. So if you want some support on how to make sense of this within your own natal chart and how it personally impacts you, I will go ahead and I'll leave the link in the description box or in the show notes below to book a lunar luminosity reading with me, where I will help you deep dive into all of what this full moon has in store for you on the day before, the day of the full moon, and the day after, just so you have all of the information that you need from a professional standpoint to understand how to integrate the energy and really making sense of it in a practical way for you to use on the day before, the day of, the day after, because this full moon, every full moon, it always has that 3-day-ish span where it starts in the beginning of the sign, moves to the middle, and then goes to the end. So, this is happening at 9 degrees of Gemini, so this happens at the beginning of Gemini. The moon will be moving out of Taurus into Gemini for the day before, and then it'll be in the rest of Gemini for the day of and day after. So this is, get some insight on what is going on, how the moon is aspecting you, what is going on with your natal chart and other planets in the sky right now. What's going on leading up to this full moon? What's going to be happening right the fuck after it? This is a very perfect, neatly little curated reading for you that's super quick, super inexpensive, so that way you can get the support that you need to understand how to work with the moon and her astrological archetypes. So again, I'll have that link down below in the description or in the show notes below if you're streaming instead of watching. But with that being said, let me know down below in the comments if you're on YouTube, or in the comment section of a review that you leave if you're streaming instead of watching, what is Sagittarius like for you as a sign? Personally, for me, I have Sagittarius as my south node and a Pluto sign for me in the 12th house, which is Jupiter ruled. So I have a pretty good relationship to Sagittarius energy for myself. Maybe not so much with other people, but, very Plutonian. But my south node with Sag is, it's something that I've spent clearly lifetimes, or lots of time early on in this life, which is very true, really developing and understanding spirituality, spiritual practices, how that integrates into my real life, mental health, boundaries, the divine, near-death experiences, things like that. There's a lot of how Sagittarius influences my life. So I'm curious to hear in the comments or in the comment section of your review what Sagittarius energy means to you and how it impacts your chart if you know. And if you don't know, again, I'm here to help with the reading. So thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to this episode of Hummingbird Arcana. If you enjoyed this episode and you are watching on YouTube, then let me know by leaving a like for the video, subscribing to the channel, and turning on that post notification bell so you're notified every time a new episode comes your way. And if you're, again, streaming instead of watching, hi, hello, how are you? I humbly implore you to leave that rating and that review that I was talking about earlier. And in the comment section of the review, also, again, let me know, how does Sagittarius energy affect you? But also, what other ideas for future episodes or any guests that you would like me to have on the podcast? I'm happy to hear from you. Or, just any feedback that you would like to leave. But with that being said, I'll go ahead and leave it here. Thank you again for tuning in to this episode, taking the time out of your day to do so. I'm Jo Hummingbird. It is always my greatest pleasure and honor to assist you in awakening you to your cosmic divinity. Many blessings, and take care, my beautiful friends.